Welcome back to the Mothership. And on this show, we're going to talk about the national championship that happened. We're going to talk about a fan that is over exuberant in his love of his state or his city. Of course, we have a good subject on Adult of the Week. We're going to put a good subject on a further review and upon further review and other good trinkets. But for right now, headlines, please. Dateline Indianapolis. Congratulations to the University of Georgia as they avenged their SEC championship loss to Alabama with a 33-18 victory in Lucas Oil Stadium. The game was capped off with a Kaylee Ringo 79-yard interception from Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young. And the Bulldogs go on to win their very first national championship in the CFP BCS era. It is their first national championship since 1980. Yes, this was when Herschel Walker was in the backfield. And some of you may remember the Run Lindsey Run call from Larry Munson in the clash that was called the greatest tailgate party ever assembled. But congratulations to Alabama as well in defeat. They played a really good game, but they did meet up against a team that was determined all year long, really, to be the best team in college football. And you cannot fault the Bulldogs for that. Dateline Boston. Jon Lester, former Cub and former Red Sox, is going to call it a career. He just turned 38 and he finished with a 201-17 record with a 3.66 ERA. And he helped many teams get to many championships. Actually, he helped the Red Sox get to a couple. And he now is in the throes of enjoying life after baseball. He felt that it was time. In fact, this is what he had to say. Quote, "It's kind of run its course. It's getting harder for me harder for me physically. The little things that come up throughout the year turn into bigger things that hinder your performance. I'd like to think I'm halfway decent of a self-evaluator. I don't want someone else telling me I can't do this anymore. I want to be able to hand my jersey over and say thank you. It's been fun. That's probably the biggest deciding factor." Close quote. Well, John, all I have to say to you, sir, is thank you for the memories. Thank you for the excellent play. And I hope everything goes well for you post-retirement. And who knows? Maybe we'll see another Jon Lester in your stead. We need more pitchers like you. Dateline Dallas. Yes. He was fined $25,000 for slamming sticks against the board behind the bench after his team took an L to the Blues earlier that day. Now, Bowness said that he was frustrated on a missed penalty call on the Blues forward Braden Shin. And he grabbed the sticks then of Stars defenseman Miro Heiskanen, and then he just went ham for because of that. And after being taken down, after the plays was taken down before the goal, he just went ballistic. And Bowness had this to say about his going off on the sideline. Quote, "If you're watching the game, you saw what happened. They clearly pulled Miro down, clearly grabbed his stick and pulled him down. That's my opinion. They got lucky." Close quote. Now, Mr. Bowness, now that's not how you're supposed to act as a leader of men and a leader of a team. I get that you get frustrated, and that is frustrating, no question about it. However, you must control yourself. You cannot go ham like that. You may cost your team more than your fine, because now the NHL may look down on you a little harder. Dateline Brooklyn. The woke people's champion, Uncle AWOL, Kyrie Irving may be able to play home games for the Nets. No. I promise you that is not a misnomer. He actually may play home games. Okay, so this is how the scenario would break down. For Kyrie to play home games, the following would have to happen. If he were to suit up and play for the Nets, the first time that he does so, with, of course, him not being vaccinated, will come with a warning. The second time would come with a $1,000 fine. The third time will come with a $2,000 fine, and the fourth and times after will come with $5,000 fines. Now, obviously, Kyrie wouldn't foot the bill. This would be the Nets doing it. So now the Nets are pondering, should we actually pay these fines to get this chip? You backed yourself into a corner, Nets. You said that you wanted your team to be at one with this vaccination thing, and you said it 3 months ago that all your players had to be on board, and everybody in the organization had to be on board. And now you are going to make concessions. You already have by having Kyrie play on the road. Now you're thinking about making these concessions stand even further by him playing home games. Not a good look. Stay tuned for this as the Nets turn yet again. Ugh. Dateline Melbourne. The saga of Novak Djokovic and the Australian government had a winding road, bending and pitching and yawning. So now it actually came down to his visa being yanked a second time, because it was yanked earlier in the week. Now it was yanked again, and his appeal, Djokovic's, went upheld. So he will not defend his 2021 Australian Open Championship because of his vaccination status. I will talk more about that on my 2-minute warning. Check it out. Dateline NFL. The playoffs are here. The greatest tournament in all of sports has arrived. I'm so happy for this time of year to come about. So, of course, the slate of games are as follows. The Raiders are going to be playing the Bengals in Cincy. You have the Patriots and Bills Saturday night. And in Buffalo, you have on Sunday afternoon, the Bucks going against the Eagles, hosting them. You have the Cowboys hosting the 49ers. You have the Steelers hosting the Chiefs. And then Monday night, the very first ever Monday Night Football game, playoff style, will feature the Rams in one corner hosting the Arizona Cardinals in the other. I will tell you how all 6 games will go, 2-minute warning style. Those videos are already up. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you enjoy the 2-minute warning sessions, period. It just gives me a thrill to do stuff like that. And let me look. Let me see. Yeah, those are your headlines. Later, we are going to talk about Kirk Herbstreit and Desmond Howard. I have a couple things to say about that and them. But coming up next, the Jets and Giants being sued. Be right back. If your sports coverage is like a poker hand, you always want to play the winning hand, correct? That's what I thought. What if I were to tell you there is a program where you can have intelligence with humor, with fact-based news, and all on a daily basis? I got that program for you. On the Daily, presented by Colts Sports, every Monday through Friday, only on YouTube. Welcome back, Bo Johnson, Colts Sports, and there's a fan that's just going out of pocket. Goodness. Okay, all right. Let me settle myself and actually try to comport myself here. So there is a fan out in the East Coast in the New York area who is taking umbrage with the Jets and the Giants playing in New Jersey. What do I mean? Well, this fan actually went so far as to file a lawsuit. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, it's time for me to go in. So this comes from the New York Daily News. It's a $6 billion federal lawsuit that was filed in Manhattan. Yes, a $6 billion lawsuit. And it demands that the Jets and the Giants leave New Jersey's MetLife Stadium and return to play in New York. All right, so the plaintiff of this suit, Abdiel Suero, he lives in Greenwich Village. He asked in the class action complaint for both teams to return to the New York area. Not necessarily the metropolitan area, but basically either Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, or Manhattan by 2025, along with the multi-billion-dollar payout. Good Lord. Okay. The lawsuit also asks for the Jets and Giants to rebrand themselves from New York to East Rutherford for as long as they remain in New Jersey. The lunacy goes on as such. Quote, if the Giants and Jets want to call themselves New York teams, they need to come back to New York. I've traveled to and from MetLife Stadium by mass transit and car service. Both ways are a nightmare. Close quote. No! All right, dude, what is your game here? All right. You're talking about an area that basically you live on top of one another. Where else can they play other than Yankee Stadium in the Bronx or Citi Field in Queens or Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens? Where would you want them to play? There isn't much to do in terms of carving that much land out for the teams to play unless you, sir, are willing in that $6 billion lawsuit to fork up a whole lot of money, a whole lot of that money to build a stadium for them. Sometimes I think people do not think when they actually do these ridiculous things. So you're upset with the fact that they called themselves New York, but they play in New Jersey. If I'm not mistaken, and I have been in the area, now I haven't lived there, but I have visited a few times. MetLife Stadium, which stands on the same ground where Giant Stadium used to be, is what, 10 miles away from Manhattan? 10 miles, maybe not even that. You have to cross over a river. Whoopee. I mean, there's many teams that actually have to travel further, and they call themselves a name. Example, the San Francisco 49ers. You know where their home stadium is? Levi Stadium, that beautiful state-of-the-art stadium. It's not in San Francisco. It's nowhere near San Francisco. It's in Santa Clara. It's a 45-minute drive from San Francisco to that stadium. Yet they call themselves San Francisco 49ers. Sometimes you have to think before you leap. And then the history of these teams has already been in effect for at least 3 decades, and with the Giants for almost 5. I mean, the Giants moved from Yankee Stadium to where they now play, or I should say the area where they now play. They've been playing there since 1976. Giant Stadium, and then at the turn of last decade, MetLife Stadium. 1976. Why didn't you have the foresight many decades beforehand to sue the Giants then? And then the Jets come aboard and they decide to wave goodbye to Shea Stadium being home for them. And then they call Giant Stadium and now MetLife Stadium home since 1984. You could have levied this suit long before 2022. 2022 is now 38 years after the Jets decided to move there and 46 years after the Giants decided to build a stadium there. So you were salty about the fact they call themselves New York, but they play in New Jersey? Really? You're stuck that hard on this? Really? You gotta sue for something that's a whole lot more reasonable than this. Come on, man. It's just ridiculous. All right, so the court filing reads like this. Quote, plaintiff and the class of New York Giants and Jets fans respectfully request that both teams return to the state of New York so they can enjoy the healthy social, psychological, and physical benefits associated with sports identifications of their home NFL teams. The move to New Jersey financially benefited the defendants alone at the expense of plaintiff and the class of millions of Giants and Jets fans. Plaintiff and the class have suffered mental and emotional damage, including depression, sadness, and anxiety as a result of the defendant's conduct. Close quote.
No!
Oh, Lord God.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. The host needs to collect himself for a moment or two. Please stand by.
That man is a loon. Oh my God.
The host simply can't believe how people can be such dolts and idiots. Please stand by. We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming, already in progress.
Oh my gosh. End this segment. I've gone in far enough. End it, please. When I come back, the DOLT of the week.
You're listening to the classiest sports show on the planet. Go Sports!
From the vault, a look back at a key moment in sports history.
January 12th, 2013. It was a clash in Mile High between the Denver Broncos and the Baltimore Ravens. To set the table for you, the Broncos sort of plodded along, but they found their stride late in the season and they earned the number one seed in the AFC. So they're coming off a bye in this game. Meanwhile, the Ravens struggled and had an up and down year, but they won the AFC North with a 10-6 record. But they had to go and play a home game against the Colts. They won that game 24-9, setting forth this matchup, one that is going to go down for the ages. It started with a Trenton Holiday punt return for a touchdown, and he actually added a kickoff return to touchdown in the third quarter. And along with that, the Broncos seemed to do whatever they wanted to do offensively, basically dinking and dunking and taking what the defense gave them. Meanwhile, the Ravens decided to play air ball and test the Broncos secondary, going deep a few times to Flacco and hitting a couple of passes. One touchdown to Torrey Smith comes to mind, and it was an exciting back and forth game. A 35-28 deficit is where we come now, and that was due to a touchdown pass from Peyton Manning to Demaryius Thomas with 7.5 minutes to go in the game. But it all came down to this play.
Not going to get it done. Flacco stepping up and throwing deep down the far sideline. Caught into the end zone. Touchdown, Jacoby Jones. How does that happen in the Denver secondary?
Now, that tied the game at 35, and it sent it into overtime, where the two teams played all of the first overtime. But the stage was set for the end of the game at the end of the first overtime when Manning threw a pick within decent field goal range for the Ravens, roughly about their 35, the Broncos 35. Another run by Ray Rice at the end of the first overtime set the stage for the beginning of the second overtime with this.
Kick is on its way, and it looks good.
The Ravens going to beat the Patriots in the AFC Championship game and then win the Super Bowl in New Orleans in Ray Lewis's last ever game. But it took this exciting epic to get there. On this date in 2013, the Ravens and Broncos staged one of the most epic playoff games ever, as the Ravens won over the Broncos 38-35 in the Mile High Miracle.
From the vault, brought to you by Colts Sports.
Greatness, agony, defeat, struggle, victory, championship, immortality. Which moments stand out in your mind through the annals of time? Cole Sports presents That Was Then, a sports retrospective. Only on Patreon.
Welcome back to Cole Sports. Cole Johnson right here. I think it's time we get down to it, shall we? Here is this episode's DOLT of the Week. DOLT of the Week is sponsored by nobody. The winner of this episode's Dolt of the Week is... Shout out to my man Brian Snow, the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are this recipient's Dolt of the Week. Why? I think it's real easy. They had not one, but two chances to make it to what I call the greatest sports tournament in all the sports. And they laid two eggs. The first one, before I even set that up, let me set the stage for you. So the two previous games, they hosted a game, I think it was Thursday night, against the Patriots, where they asserted their authority against the Patriots by the running game. They punished them. They punished the Patriots all game long, and it was topped off by a 67-yard touchdown run by Jonathan Taylor. That was the cherry on top of the sundae. Then they have a Saturday night game on the road in the desert against the Cardinals. And it took a fourth-quarter touchdown pass that went through to buoy the Colts' chances even further. And all they needed after that game was one win, and they were in no matter what. Now, I mentioned the Patriots and the Cardinals because those are two playoff teams. So they were on par with those two teams. So then a third playoff team came a knocking in the Raiders, and they were fighting for their playoff lives as well. Be it as they were 8-7 at the time. So it was nip and tuck that game, and then Carr found it within himself to pull the Raiders to a victory, 23-20, and it was a disappointing loss. Now, I excuse that loss simply because it wasn't this was boneheaded type of thing for the Colts. But their trip to Jacksonville is a totally different story. So all they needed was a win against a team that only won 2 games in the year, and they handily beat them in Indianapolis. So this should have been a slam dunk for them. However, it was as if the Colts just simply rolled their white helmets with the blue horseshoe on it on the field and said, okay, well, we got this game. All we're doing is packing up and trying to decide where we have to travel for the next weekend set of playoff games, which begins the wild card round. You would have literally thought, and I'm not being funny when I say this, you would have thought the Colts and Jaguars switched jerseys. You would have thought that Trevor Lawrence was Carson Wentz. You would have thought that Darius Leonard was actually playing for the Jaguars defense. You would have thought the Colts offensive line was the Jaguars offensive line. It was ridiculous. The Colts picked the wrong time to play the worst game, not just of this year, but possibly the worst game in the franchise's history. And this isn't hyperbole. This is historic. You know, they went into that game 15-point favorites. 15. That's a touchdown and another touchdown with a 2-point conversion. They were 15-point favorites, and they lose by 15 points. 26-11. You cannot make this stuff up. You had the most golden of opportunities, and you blew it. It was so bad that there was a groundswell of Jonathan Taylor basically saying, well, bump the MVP being considered Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. Bump that. This Jonathan Taylor cat should be the MVP because basically he is the one who is bringing the Colts along with them. He actually seems to be literally the most valuable player on the team and the most valuable player on a team. And it was as if he did a disappearing act. In the game they needed him the most, he disappeared. And I don't even put all of the blame on him in that regard. This, I could say it's Wentz's fault. I could say it's the offensive line's fault because they went to sleep. And Wentz basically was on a first-name basis with the turf in Jacksonville. I could say it's the defense's fault because they couldn't hold the Jaguars to scoring. But I have to admit, I can't really fault the defense all that much because the offense gave them nothing to work with, and they still held the Jaguars to 4 field goals. So I can't really fault them either all that much. So the gaze goes toward Carson Wentz, yes. And now we know that you may be a good quarterback, but you're not a difference-making quarterback. And unfortunately, this year has proven that you're not. I was hoping that would not be the case. Unfortunately, it is. And then the coach that wanted you there, Frank Reich, and I have the utmost respect for him. I have a little fan hatred for him, not because I root against the Colts, although they are a division rival of the team I root for. No, it's about when he was a quarterback. When he was a quarterback for the Bills, and he had a game against the Oilers, and you already know it's not about that. It's about his team, his current team. He's a head coach of. Mr. Reich, you should have had your team ready for this game, this moment. This was something that you should have said, hey, all the things that you are probably thinking, get them out your mind. Forget that this is going to be an easy pitch and catch, slam dunk opportunity for you to win, and only think we have to execute one play at a time. One play at a time on offense, one play at a time on defense, one play at a time on special teams. One play at a time. Do your job, and you will be in the playoffs. But your team looked as though they already were in the playoffs, or they wanted to be home because they played like it. Inexcusable how they played, inexcusable how they looked, and inexcusable how they simply allowed the Jaguars to look like the 1989 San Francisco 49ers. Yes, I already know that you all, as an organization, Colts, you haven't won in Jacksonville since Andrew Luck was your quarterback. I know. 2014 was the last time you won in Jacksonville. So now that makes it the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21. Your 7th straight defeat in Jacksonville. If there was any moment in time that you all would think that you've turned the corner as a franchise in terms of, well, we were actually knocking on the door to the AFC title back in 2014, we want to get back to that. The only way you can do that is you have to win the games that you must win. You have to win the games that are considered givens to everybody else on earth. You have no problem doing that with the Texans and Houston. Why is it that you have the issue with Jacksonville there? Well, you basically made the Jaguars' season. They had the biggest win in I don't know how long by knocking you guys completely out of the playoffs. And you all don't deserve it. You deserve where you're supposed to be. Home. Licking your wounds, saying what might have been, asking why not us, asking why us, and pointing the finger to everybody else. But you know what you should do? Look in the mirror. All 53 of you. I'm talking about the players, all 53 of you, and the staff, and the head coach. All of you, which is probably about the amount of 70 people. All 70 of you, look in the mirror and point at the figure in it. That who is at fault for you not being in the playoffs. When I come back, Kirk Herbstreit and Desmond Howard, come on down. You got some explaining to do. Upon further review, perfect, is next.
discouragement, sorrow, distance. Your arguments cause damage to your family. The hurt leads to divorce. You feel like there is nowhere else to turn. But there is hope for you. That's where we come into play. There is an overcomer that lives inside of you. One ready to take on the world as you leap for joy, living in victory. You'll grow to love yourself and others. There's life after divorce, and you can claim it today. Get Over Divorce, where your new story begins here every Thursday on YouTube and Spreaker.
Coming up on the next week's installment of Cole Sports, we're going to dive into the divisional round in the NFL, talk a little bit about the NBA, maybe do some hot stove stuff, and upon further review, we're going to win or lose, talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, they had a tumultuous 2021 season, but I have to give the kudos to where it's due. And so that is for next week. But we're not done. No, we're not done. Got one more issue to talk about, and that is Kirk Herbstreit and Desmond Howard of ESPN's College Game Day. Now, each had some particular choice words for the current player, the current football player, their mentality, their thought process. And they were saying that they didn't love, Herbstreit said that they didn't love football, and Howard said that there's a sense of entitlement with the players. I take umbrage with both of those statements, and here's why. And upon further review.
Sometimes old school values are a good thing to have. But then there are other times when maybe get off my lawn is not the right approach. You have Kirk Herbstreit, former Ohio State quarterback, now part of the ESPN Game Day crew, and is the color commentator on the #1 ESPN college football broadcast pairing, along with Chris Fowler. He wholeheartedly believes that college players today just don't love football. He said as much on TV. And then you have Desmond Howard, former Michigan wide receiver and returner, who earned the Heisman in 1991 and MVP honors in Super Bowl 31, and he's also a part of the ESPN College Game Day clan. He recently went viral in saying that players today are essentially entitled. Both analysts are wrong. It's difficult to have this conversation without first uncovering some of why this is the case. We got to this part of the sports journey because the NCAA has sold the narrative that the players who attend college are student athletes, emphasis on the word student, and purposely have student come in front of athlete. However, a funny thing happened on the way to today. Each professional sport earns billions of dollars each year. The prospect for an athlete to set up his current and future family up for life is dangled in front of them like the Infinity Stones in front of Thanos. They can literally, with one snap of a finger, say goodbye to poverty and hello to riches. For most 18-year-olds that dream of being a professional athlete, this is the pot at the end of their rainbow. But for a long time, athletes who went to college received no benefit from playing on the field. What made it even worse is that the NCAA themselves made millions, then hundreds of millions, and now billions of dollars in football and basketball. Both entities make so much money for the NCAA, it pays and paves the way for other sports to function. It also makes institutions wealthy beyond belief, setting the stage for big-name coaches in football and basketball to command salaries commensurate with their professional counterparts. You have Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban earning as much as $10 million each year to coach 18 to 21-year-olds that their hard-earned sweat helps them live the life they themselves dream of having. For a long time, and in many ways even today, athletes couldn't grab a piece of that pie. Remember, they are student athletes, or to put it another way, amateurs. And amateurs do not play for money. No, they play because they love the sport. The will to compete, to have fun, to have an innocent energy, even while staring down the hot, bright lights of national television, should mean more than making ends meet in college. You go to this big-name school, and the fame should be more than enough. In these ever-changing times, fame is not enough. Now, without having to go through the NCAA hoops, a person before they turn 18 can earn money on Instagram and YouTube if their content is accepted by many. Plus, the cost of living is rising ever so gradually. Add to it many other life's obstacles, making it difficult to be free any other way for some. Other than to spit a hot 16, sing like Mariah Carey, act on the silver screen, or push weight in the street, athletics is the way out of squalor and the way to prosperity. There has been a groundswell of having players earn money while in college. The Fab Five of 1992 and 1993 at the University of Michigan was considered persona non grata for a few decades afterwards because of financial booster help. Ed O'Bannon proudly talked about getting money while playing at UCLA. And those are just two examples of many. Players are beginning to see themselves as commodities. NFL scouts are looking at high school prospects to see what's next in 3 to 4 years. NBA scouts are in high school gyms checking out the hype for a high school senior to make an impact even sooner. These athletes are told if they run a certain time, lift a certain weight, score a certain number of baskets, throw or even run for an inordinate amount of touchdowns, their pot at the end of the rainbow will be closer than they think. To the powers that be in selling the dream to the youngsters. If they can do these 3 things, they'll be fine. Go to class and impress all the professors. Steer clear from the law. Stay as healthy as they possibly can their whole stay in college. Now, this goes back to Herbstreit's and Howard's criticism. They talk about these athletes as if the logo on the helmets mean nothing to them. Nothing is further from the truth. One way or another, school matters to them. What today's collegiate athlete is starting to discover is that the investment in their bodies mean even more than the loyalty to whatever school they attend. It isn't that these athletes have a sense of entitlement. They have a sense of investment. And Herbstreit challenges the love of football with today's college football player? That these college players should play in bowls? Well, tell that to Matt Corral. The high-round quarterback prospect was gung-ho in playing the Sugar Bowl for Ole Miss 2 weeks ago. But one sack changed all of that. And then there's Jamison Williams, the wide receiver prospect who was supposed to be one of the most coveted draft picks this April. Williams was well on his way to the NFL until he tore his ACL in the first half of the national championship. You see, it's not because these young men and women don't care about the collegiate experience. These athletes want to experience all that college has to offer and not have to be destitute while doing it and making many grown men and some women rich. They want their bodies to provide them the biggest return on their investment. So if we see more Jadeveon Clowneys or Christian McCaffreys, then so be it. Would I selfishly want to see them miss the peach, rose, orange, fiesta, sugar, or cotton bowls? No. Would I want them to miss any other bowl? Of course not. And the same would go for the national semifinals and the CFP title game. However, if it means they stand to make more money preserving their bodies rather than use the bowl season as a platform to elevate their name even further with a legendary performance, then they should do it. It's time we applaud these young men and women for recognizing their worth in college. Many profit off of their hard work, their discipline, their sweat, and their commitment. I believe it's high time these young men and women start profiting off of their own hard work, their own discipline, their own sweat, and their own commitment. A happier athlete will make for a happier institution and a better overall sport. With the athlete making an investment in himself or herself, everybody wins.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Cole Sports. And if you want to know where we are, well, it's quite simple. To reach the show, go to colesports@gmail.com. And also, here are the social media homes for Cole Sports. On Twitter, it is at Cole_sports with a Z. On Facebook, it is Cole Sports with a Z. On Instagram, it is Cole Sports with a Z. And on YouTube, it is YouTube/C/Cole Sports with a Z. Now, I want you to do these things. Like this video and share it throughout your social media circles. Tell a friend to tell a friend about this program. And I hope you all enjoyed this content that we give you. Thank you so very much, VIP. And for all of us here at Cole Sports, I'm Cole Johnson, here to say to you once again, it is my honor to say that this is Cole.
Thank you for tuning into Cole Sports. For apparel, go to Spring and type Cole Sports with a Z. VIP Boutique. To download this episode, go to Spreaker and type Cole Sports with a Z. To view, go to YouTube and type Cole Sports with a Z. This has been a presentation of Comey Media Incorporated.